Welcome to the East Central Regional Arts Council's final report, Tips and Best Practices. Okay, some of the things I'm going to go over in this video include what is the final report, if you're wondering, where do you find your final report, what if you have grant project changes, what do you do, required documents that we'll be looking for in the final report, especially information about the budget and the certification page. And then of course this is pre-recorded, so I can't answer questions right now, but if you have questions about anything I cover in this final report or something maybe that I'm not covering in the final report, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, first of all, what is the final report? The final report allows your organization or the artist to provide us with the narrative of your grant project's success. We're also looking for documentation of any promotional materials for your project, documentation of project income and expenses, and then any documentation for your outcome evaluation of the grant project, if it was included with your project. And I'll go into that a little bit more here in a minute. The final report is required for all grantees. So if you've received a grant from the East Central Regional Arts Council, we will require you to complete a final report with your project. Organizations who've applied with us, organizations who've received a grant with us will have 60 days from the end date of your grant project to complete and submit the final report. Unless you've received the Essential Support Grant, which only gives you 30 days. That was formerly known as the the General Operating Support. Otherwise, organizations have 60 days. And individual artists who have received grants from us will have 30 days to complete their final report. And that's 30 days from the end date of your project. The final report must be completed online, and it does include project narrative, documentation of press releases, publicity, web pages, news articles, outcome evaluations, proof of payment, and proof of payment for project income and expenses. Okay, where do you find your final report? The final report is online. So you can go to our website, ECRAC.org, and find the final report there, or you can go to this exact website, and that is the login page to get to our grant portal where your final report is on your dashboard. So it's the same place where you completed the application, you'll find the final report. The final report will have an edit button that you'll click on, and that edit button is on the right side of the page, so you may have to scroll over to the right to find the edit button for your project. And keep in mind that you do not have to complete the final report in one sitting. You can go in stages and complete sections at a time. And just make sure you're saving that final report before you log out. Okay, grant project changes. Hopefully at this point, if you're working on your final report, it means any changes to your project have already been requested and approved by ECRAC. However, if you're getting to the end of your project and you're noticing that there's been budget changes needed or things like that, you have until the end date of your project to submit a change request. So perhaps you've noticed some budget changes and they need to be approved because that line item changed more than 20%. Please submit a change request to ECRAC. Changes made to the project without ECRAC approval may result in grant funds needing to be returned to ECRAC, and/or they could affect future applications from your organization or as an artist, and could affect your ability scores. So again, if you have a change for your project, please reach out to us if you have not already to get approval for those changes. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know. All right, required documents that you'll need with your final report include any promotional material. So if you put out any press releases or any publicity or posters or flyers or mailings that you put out for your project, feel free to include those with your final report. Any web pages or news articles that you are included in can all go into your final report. Just remember that all of your promotional material that you're using for your project should include the correct logos and the correct funding line for your project. So all of that information was included with your contract when you agreed to begin the project. So hopefully this isn't a surprise to anyone. But if you have questions again about any of this stuff, please let me know. Other required information for your project will include your grant program outcomes. So of course this is only if they were included with your project, but all of our organization grants require outcome evaluations, and some of our individual artist grants require outcome evaluations. So if your project was approved with us, you know if you have outcome evaluations or not. If you don't, you can skip over this section, but if you do, make sure that you are reporting in your final report on those outcomes. It's especially important for our Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund grants because our fellow citizens have made the commitment to approve this funding. We have an obligation to be intentional about our art projects. So the outcomes, impacts, and results, and the community benefits that resulted from your project are included in those outcome evaluations are an important part of the funding proposal. So in fact, they are a legislative mandated requirement for your final report. Grant program outcomes will include things like artists and arts are visible in communities, artists develop practices, people access arts experiences, perhaps they develop art skills or knowledge. This should be familiar. It was included in the application and you did propose what your outcomes would be, but in your final report we are looking for the actual outcomes. So you'll report to us on, on those in the final report, as well as include a summary evaluation of those outcomes and outcome evaluation results. So again, if there's questions, please let me know. Brand new information. Proof of payment for grant income and expenses is no longer required with the final report. Yes, you heard me correctly. Proof of payment for grant income and expenses is no longer required with your final report. However, please, please, please keep in mind that you want to still retain copies of your proof of payment and make those copies available for the next 3 years after your project end date, just in case we ever need to check back with you and need to request that proof of payment for your project. So again, like I said, proof of payment is no longer required with your final report, but you do need to retain those copies of proof of payment for up to 3 years after the end date of your project. So proof of payment that we would accept include paid receipts, canceled checks, sales slips, in-kind vouchers, staff timesheets. Unacceptable proofs of payment would include an invoice that still has a balance due, copies of checks that have not been cleared by the bank, or payments that have been made for your project before the start date or after the end date of your project. All grant-related expenses must be made during the approved project period. So, as I said, it's no longer required, but you are welcome to upload receipts if you'd like. We certainly will still have a space available for this in the final report, but again, it's no longer required. Okay, final financial report budget. I will still include in the final report budget form. So this is just the final financial report form that will include a column of the approved budget for your project that was approved with your application. And then it will have a blank column for you to complete the actual expenses for your project. So you'll just be filling in this blank column with your actual expenses and uploading that back into the final report. This document is attached to the final report at the very top under Documents tab. You'll find this there. If it's not there, please let me know. But you want to just complete this report and upload it back into the project. As it says here, that we will be reviewing all proof of payment. So if you do submit proof of payment, it's very helpful, but not required at this time. Again, like I said in the previous slide, we're no longer requiring it, but we will want to see your actual expenses reported here on this budget form. Upload the completed form back into the final report where we have an upload spot for you. Organizations completing a final report will include a certification page with appropriate signatures from your organization. So that certification page is very similar to the certification page that was included with the application, where we'll be looking for 2 signatures from one from the project director and a signature from an authorized official from your organization. The certification page certifies that your final report is accurate representation of your grant project and that you've carried out the project as approved by the ECRAC board. It is a document that will be attached to the final report, and you'll just print it, get the signatures required, and then upload this as a PDF back into the final report. If you have questions about anything I covered in this video or anything that I did not cover in this video, please reach out to me. Our phone number is 320-591-7031. My email address is grantinfo@ecrac.org. Again, my name is Katina. I'm the Grant Program Officer. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. This activity is made possible with funds provided by the McKnight Foundation and also by the voters of Minnesota, thanks to legislative appropriations from both the General Fund and the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.